Okay, so let's get into this. Imagine you're on Zillow, you're scrolling, it's early 2026,
Mm-hmm.
and you're looking at this one specific part of the Worcester County, Pennsylvania, the Great Valley School District,
Right.
and you see something that just makes, well, it makes no sense at all.
You mean the numbers are a bit off?
I mean, the numbers are basically at war with each other.
Right.
On one side, you have inventory that's just vanishing, the shelves are bare.
Classic scarcity.
Totally.
If-
So your brain immediately goes, okay, seller's market, bidding wars, chaos.
That's the logical leap, yeah.
But then you look at the other number, the days on market. And these houses, they aren't flying off the shelves.
They're sitting.
They are sitting.
And-
sitting. It feels like everyone decided to stop selling and stop buying at the exact same moment.
It is a paradox, isn't it? Because usually, low supply equals high speed.
Exactly.
But here we have low supply and, stagnation.
That is exactly what we're diving into today.
Yeah.
We're looking at this really specific window, January 9th through February 6th, 2026.
Mm-hmm.
We've got a whole stack of weekly market reports from the SIR team at Real Broker, and we've pulled some local news, too, to get context on things like roads and schools.
And it's a great case study because Great Valley is often a kind of bellwether for the bigger suburban market. It's desirable, it's affluent, but right now, it's just confusing.
And our mission today is to help you, the listener, figure out what on earth you're supposed to do with this. If you're a buyer, do you wait? If you're a seller, do you panic?
The signals are definitely mixed.
Prices are high, stock is low, but patience, and honestly, some big price cuts, seem to be the only things actually moving the needle.
It's a messy picture, for sure. But I think if we connect the dots, we can find a story in there that makes sense.
Okay, let's start with that inventory free fall. Because when I first saw these reports, I honestly thought it was a typo. The trend line just drops off a cliff.
It's very sharp decline.
So January 9th, 2026, we start the month with 60 active listings for the entire Great Valley School District.
Which isn't a lot to begin with.
Right. But just 2 weeks later, January 23rd, we're down to 50. Then by February 6th, we hit a low of 43.
43.
That's a 28% drop in supply in less than a month.
And just for context, Great Valley covers Malvern, Charlestown, Willistown, East Whiteland.
These are not small towns.
Not at all. So for that whole area to only have 43 homes for sale, that is incredibly tight.
But here's where I start to get a little skeptical. You say tight, and I think hot market. But is it really tight if nobody seems to want the 43 homes that are left?
That is the million-dollar question, isn't it? If you look at the months of inventory metric.
Which is how long it would take to sell everything if nothing new came on the market.
Exactly. It was hovering between 1.4 and 1.7 months. And historically, anything under 3 months is a strong seller's market.
That's the textbook definition.
It is. But the textbook kind of assumes that demand is constant. What we're seeing here is that while the supply is low, demand has become incredibly specific.
So it's not that nobody wants these homes.
It's that nobody wants them at these prices, or maybe in their current condition.
Okay, let's dig into that idea. Because the days on market stat is where this whole thing gets, well, painful.
It is a little painful to look at, yeah.
On January 9th, the average home had been sitting for 115 days.
Almost 4 months.
Yeah. In the COVID years, 115 days meant the house was, like, actively haunted or something.
Something was seriously wrong.
But by February 6th, even as inventory cratered, the average days on market actually went up to 131 days.
Think about the psychology of that. You're a seller, you see the news, you know inventory is at a record low, you think you hold all the cards.
Sure.
But your house has been on the market for 4.5 months, and it's just crickets.
That has to be maddening.
It creates this standoff. We call it pricing fatigue. Sellers are looking at data from 6 months ago or a year ago.
Or their neighbor who sold for a fortune last year.
Exactly. So they list high. But buyers in 2026, they're much more savvy. They're looking at interest rates, the economy, and they're just crossing their arms and saying no.
It's a stare down. And in a stare down, somebody has to blink.
And in this market, the data tells us exactly who is blinking.
Okay, let's talk about the blinking. Because you see these list prices and they look really confident. But then you look a little closer.
You have to look at the price reduction statistic. That's always the truth serum in real estate.
Right, hit me with the reality check.
Okay, so through this whole period, all of January, early February, somewhere between 30% and 38% of all active listings had price reductions.
Wow. So nearly 4 out of every 10 houses on the market have had to slash their asking price.
Precisely, and that's a huge number. In a truly hot seller's market, you don't see price cuts.
You see bidding wars, people paying over ask.
Escalation clauses, right. So when you see 38% of listings cutting their price, it tells you that the initial pricing strategy was just fundamentally wrong.
So sellers are testing the waters, find out the water's freezing, and then running back to shore.
That's a pretty good way to put it. And it creates this kind of split market, which the report mentions. You have the homes that are priced correctly from day one.
And those are gone in a flash.
They sell in 30 days or less. They disappear. The 43 homes that are left, a lot of them are the ones that overshot. They're the stale inventory.
So if I'm a buyer listening to this, and I see a house that's been sitting for 130 days, should I think it's a lemon or an opportunity?
In this specific market, I would lean hard towards opportunity. The advice from the source material was very explicit on this. It said, negotiate confidently. If a home has been there for 131 days and the seller sees inventory is low but they still can't get a bite, they are probably very, very motivated.
The list price is just a suggestion at that point.
In theory, yes. You don't want to insult them, obviously. But the leverage has shifted, the buyer has time, the seller, after 130 days, is running out of it.
Let's talk about the actual price tags, because they are, they're eye-watering.
They are significant, yes.
The median price was on a roller coaster. January 9th, it's $814,000. Late January, it spikes to over $924,000.
A huge jump.
Then in early February, it settles back at $899,000. And for most people, a $900,000 median price is a massive number.
It is, but you have to remember, that's the median, the middle point. If you look at the average price in Great Valley, it's hovering around $1.5 million.
Okay, wait a minute. A $600,000 gap between the median and the average, that seems enormous. What's driving that?
It really just speaks to the extreme diversity of the homes in this one school district.
Okay.
You have listings for, say, $260,000, probably a condo or a small starter home. And then in the same data set, you have estates listed for $5.475 million.
Right. A $5.5 million house will skew things.
When you have multi-million-dollar horse farms and historic estates in the mix, they just pull that average way, way up. But for a typical family looking for a 4-bedroom colonial, that $900 K median is probably the more realistic number to look at.
Okay, that makes more sense. But still, this is where that geography comes in, right? You're not just buying a house.
You're buying into a specific lifestyle node. And in Great Valley, those nodes are drastically different from each other.
Let's break those down, because the reports list all these townships, Malvern, Charlestown, Paoli. To an outsider, they're just dots on a map.
But if you live there, they are completely different worlds. Let's start with Malvern Borough.
The walkable village.
Right. If you're buying in Malvern Borough, you're probably trading square footage and a big yard for lifestyle. You're paying a premium to walk to a coffee shop, walk to the SEPTA train to get into Philly.
You want that Main Street vibe.
Exactly. A smaller yard, neighbors close by, but you have that built-in community.
Now contrast that with, say, Charlestown. The report calls it bucolic.
Bucolic is real estate code for you're going to need a riding mower.
That's what I was thinking. Bucolic sounds lovely until you have to maintain 3 acres of it.
And that's the trade-off. Charlestown and Willistown, that's where you go for privacy.
The horse properties, the open space.
You want the long driveway where you can't see the house from the road. You're paying for land in silence. But you're also a 15-minute drive from a gallon of milk.
And then you've got Paoli and East Whiteland,
which are more like the strategic hubs. Paoli is a massive transportation center, Amtrak and SEPTA. East Whiteland has the big corporate centers.
So that's for the commuter.
If you're a busy professional who wants to minimize your commute and maximize convenience, that's where you're looking. Probably a newer development or a townhouse community.
But despite all these wildly different vibes, from the horse farm to the townhouse, they all share one thing that seems to be the foundation for these prices.
The school district.
The report specifically mentions that Great Valley High School is in the top 1% in Pennsylvania for math and science.
And that is the anchor. Real estate values are incredibly sensitive to school rankings.
I'll say.
When you have a top 1% school, you essentially create a moat around property values. Even in a downturn, people want to be in that district. It puts a floor on how far prices can realistically drop.
So you're not just paying a mortgage, you're paying tuition for the algebra program.
In a way, yes. You're paying for the resale value that the algebra program guarantees.
Okay, so speaking of things that drive value, usually we just stick to the housing stats. But this report had some local news snippets that I actually thought were the most interesting part.
I agree. You can't understand the housing market if you ignore the concrete, literally.
So one of the articles talked about the Pennsylvania Turnpike ramp in Malvern, but it was a project from 2012. Why are we talking about a road that was built 14 years ago?
Because that ramp explains the $1.5 million average price tag we were just talking about.
Okay, connect those dots for me.
Before that ramp, getting to the corporate centers in Malvern was a real headache. The article says that one ramp fueled billions in growth.
Billions.
It allowed major companies to build headquarters there because their employees and their freight could actually get to the office easily. The jobs came because the road came.
And then the high-income buyers followed the jobs.
Exactly. That one piece of infrastructure from over a decade ago is really the grandfather of today's housing demand. It's a great reminder that real estate is a long game.
It's the ripple effect. And speaking of commercial ripples, there were two other signals in the report that caught my eye. First, the Hampton Inn in Malvern was listed for sale.
The 125-room hotel.
Right. Now, most of us aren't buying hotels. Why should a home buyer care about that?
Because a hotel sale tells you what the smart money thinks about the future of the local economy.
How so?
If investors are buying hotels, they are betting on business travel. They're betting that consultants, executives, and salespeople are going to keep coming to Malvern for work.
So it's a proxy for economic health.
Precisely. If that hotel market were dead, it would be a huge red flag that the corporate centers might be emptying out. And if they empty out, those $900,000 home values start to look really shaky.
Okay, that makes sense. But then there was this other sale that I found even more fascinating. The Great Valley School District itself bought a commercial office building.
For $7.5 million, yeah.
Usually schools build schools. They don't buy office parks. What's going on there?
This is a huge trend, and it's actually brilliant. Think about the post-2020 world. Commercial office space has taken a beating.
For sure. Vacancy rates are high.
And prices for those buildings have dropped. So the school district is basically bargain hunting. Instead of spending, say, $50 million in 3 years to build a new administrative building from scratch,
They buy an existing one for a fraction of the cost. Adaptive reuse.
it's surprisingly nimble for a school district, right? And for a homeowner, this is fantastic news. It means the district is investing in education, expanding its infrastructure.
But doing it in a fiscally responsible way. They aren't jacking up taxes to build a shiny new palace.
Exactly. They're buying a distressed asset and repurposing it. That kind of smart management is a huge draw for buyers.
Of course, not all infrastructure news is good news. We have to mention the sinkhole.
The Route 29 sinkhole, yes.
The Moorhull Road remediation project. Now, the expert in the report tried to spin this as a positive, saying it shows maintenance and grit. But, come on.
You're not buying it.
If I'm buying a house and I see a giant sinkhole repair crew causing a traffic jam, I'm not thinking, oh, wonderful grit. I'm thinking, is my driveway going to collapse?
That is a very fair reaction. Nobody likes traffic cones. But I think the point they were trying to make is about stabilization.
Okay.
In some places, infrastructure fails and it just stays failed. Here, when something breaks, even a massive sinkhole, major resources get deployed to fix it properly.
So it's messy, but it's a sign that the township has the money and the will to maintain things.
Exactly. But yes, for the next 6 months, it's just a headache.
By stabilizing headache.
Yeah, got it.
Okay, let's bring this all back to the listener. We've hit inventory, pricing, geography, infrastructure. If you had to sum up the state of Great Valley in February 2026 in one phrase, what would it be?
I'd call it selectively tight.
Unpack that for me.
The tight part is real. There are only 43 homes for sale. You can't just create new inventory out of thin air.
Right.
But the selective part is where the power has shifted. Buyers are refusing to pay yesterday's prices for just any old house.
So who has the power then? The buyer or the seller?
It really depends on the house. If a seller prices their home correctly at today's market value, not their dream value, they have the power. Those homes sell fast.
But if a seller is stubborn,
The buyer has all the power. They can wait. They can watch that days on market number just tick up and up and up.
and as we saw, nearly 40% of sellers are realizing they were too stubborn and are cutting their prices.
And that leads me to a final thought I'd like to leave you with.
Go for it.
We talk about market value like it's this fixed objective number, like this house is worth $900,000.
Okay.
But if almost 40% of the market has to cut their price to actually find a buyer, is the market value really $900,000?
That is a very provocative question.
It suggests the listed value and the real value are drifting apart. We might be watching a silent correction happen in real time. The headlines say prices are high, But the reality on the ground is that prices are being negotiated down.
So the sticker price is an illusion.
Or at least it's an opening bid, an optimistic one.
That is such a crucial takeaway for anyone trying to buy right now. Don't look at the price tag and assume that's what the house is worth.
Look at how long it's been sitting.
The days on market.
That number is the most important one in this entire report. It tells you the story that the price tag is trying to hide.
I love that. The story the price tag is trying to hide. So for you listening to this, next time you see that Zillow listing, scroll down, check the days on market. That number might just be your best friend at the negotiating table.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
Thanks for diving in with us today. It's a weird market out there, but at least now we have a better idea of why.
My pleasure.
Until next time, keep watching the numbers behind the numbers.